What's going on, guys? This is Mike Malloy here, founder of M2 Performance Nutrition. We are here with Mekenzie Riley. Mekenzie, thanks for joining us.
Of course, anytime.
What's new? Hey, there's a lot going on in your life these days. We've got a baby. We've got huge transitions. Talk to me. What's going on?
Yeah, just a little bit of change. No big deal. Yeah, definitely a huge transition the last couple of months.
Sure.
Yes, I am pregnant. We are about 23, almost 24 weeks. So we're over halfway. I've tried to not be that person that talks about it all the time, but it's definitely becoming very much a big focal point of my every single day.
Have you noticed that no other point in your life do you measure things in weeks until either you're pregnant or as you're soon going to find out after you have a baby? Everything's like, oh yeah, I'm 24 weeks. And after the baby, it's like, oh, the baby's 8 weeks old. And then eventually you transition to months and then, and then so you can think back to normalcy, but everything's measured in weeks.
People ask me, they're like, how many months is that? And I'm like, I don't even know anymore. Now I speak in weeks. So
yeah, I'm just counting to 40 people. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I was just over halfway. I'm just over halfway.
So how's that going? How's pregnancy going for you right now?
It's good. It's actually, I feel pretty lucky. I know that there can be a lot worse case scenarios. I mean, I had about 8 weeks of pretty horrible sickness, or I wouldn't call it it's not like morning sickness where you're vomiting, but it's just complete non-desire to eat certain foods. So I dealt with that for a while, and I still managed to be able to work out, but definitely fatigue. And now the growing, changing body. Yes, my boobs are huge. I tried to maybe get them out of the frame. But just a lot of things changing, but it's amazing, and I'm very blessed to even be in this position. But with that, obviously a change in where all my time goes, because I'm not in the gym training 5 or 6 hours a day. So there's been a lot of change on that end as well, with what the hell am I going to do with myself if I'm not going to be competing? So
what are you doing with yourself?
Yeah, right. Well, I've got a lot of projects and ideas that are not kind of wake up overnight and you got a brand new career and a brand new job, but kind of in the works. And so I've just kind of been putting pieces in place for the past couple months. So hopefully it'll be all coming together soon. But yeah, more coaching, nutrition and CrossFit, obviously. And, like I said, kind of just some side things, trying to get some passion projects brewing into bigger things. So yeah, It's kind of weird though. I'm not gonna lie.
Cool. Well, for those that don't know, Mekenzie was one of the very first elite female clients that I brought in to my sort of coaching queue. And so when I started to think about, doing some interview series, it was one of the easiest decisions to have her, come on very early on and talk about her experience working with me. And I think more importantly, talking about sort of her experience within the CrossFit world, body image, and trying to, quote, fit the mold. And so, Kenzie, maybe what we can do is start and just think about, where you were in your training career when you decided to reach out to me. So I think over closing in on 4 years, 4.5, I don't know, something like 4 years ago. Where were you in your life? And let's kind of just talk about that place and go from there.
Right. Well, I mean, I started CrossFit in 2012 and quickly kind of realized, hey, I've got some natural talent. I've got a previous background as an athlete. So I kind of very quickly got into wanting to compete, learning about the option to compete, the different levels of competition. And so I started in 2012. By 2013, I was going to regionals. And I went to regionals 13, 14, 15, all the way till there were no regionals. So I had been to 2 regionals on a team by the time I'd reached out to you. And I knew that I wanted to compete individually someday. But at the time I just wasn't good enough to be an individual, but I aspired to. So I knew it was I need to, well, first of all, I was I don't look like these girls, and I want to, first of all. Second of all, they're better than me, and that's what they look like. So maybe I need to. So it was kind of a want and a need in my mind. So yeah, I have been CrossFitting and at an elite level, if you count regionals as a higher level, for at least 2 years before I thought about, I mean, and I had talked to other people about nutrition, but it was people that I was like, oh, this girl looks like she knows what she's doing, so I'm just going to do what she does. Or like, oh, I saw this is how, like, this is a day in the life of so-and-so, and this is how she eats, so I'll do that. Or they follow zone diet, so I'll follow that. So I kind of like tried to do what I thought those people that I wanted to be like were doing without getting any real input specific to my personal situation.
Sure. So I think one of the reoccurring themes that we'll come back to is sort of this idea of, Mekenzie deciding to eat for performance versus eat for aesthetics. And so let's just be clear off the bat. When you first reached out to me, was it an aesthetic-based goal or was it a performance-based goal that you were after?
Definitely more aesthetic-based, because in my mind, aesthetics equaled performance.
Right. And so it's interesting. So like, we're going to talk about a ton of this stuff, but Mekenzie's sort of like primary brain focus is on aesthetics. But I think subconsciously in the back of her brain, there was this sort of like performance-oriented focus. And I bring this up now because the reason that you knew about me and my coaching was because of both of our good friends, Tasia Persevich. And, Tasia looks amazing. She's super strong, but you reached out after she had just like podiumed at like East Coast Classic, Granite Games, Wadapalooza, if not like more. And so, you met her through those competitions
and saw she looked really good.
Yeah, of course. She looked really good. She's performing really good. And so, all of a sudden you're like, let's figure out what she's doing. And so you find me. And so, just in a big picture scheme of things, keep in mind that like there's this battle, I think, going on in your head. And please correct me if I'm wrong, between like, I gotta look this way, but I also want to perform this way.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to balance these two things as well.
even at my peak of like, my brain is, I've got it figured, like I'm okay. I'm not crazy anymore. Like even at that point, like there's still that thought, like, of course, because you can always be way more aesthetic. Like if you really want to put all your eggs in that basket. But yeah, that's obviously not the sport I'm in. So it's also like, hey, don't be stupid. But yeah, and I don't want to say I had a hard time coming to that sort of conclusion of reaching out to somebody, because I had been a dietitian. I've been registered dietitian since 2013. Yep. That's something I worked towards, all through school. And so I'm like, I'm a nutrition professional. Like I know about nutrition. I can figure this out on my own. And it turns out that, like knowledge and application and experience are all different things. And so I couldn't figure out for me how to fucking make this work, and what this was working for this person, or these numbers that were like supposed to work for me. I was still in the same place. So I was just kind of like running into all these walls where I was like, why are all of these, things that are supposed to make sense not really doing anything? So
sure. And so maybe let's talk about kind of like when you started with me about 4 years ago, you're training, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, you're training roughly 3 to 4 hours a day. On a training day, you're eating about 1,650 calories, and on a rest day, eating closer to 1,350 calories. Sleeping at night is not going very well because you're waking up frequently to go pee. You're thirsty all the time. And
I sweat through my sheets. I sweat real bad.
Lots of sweat, and performance is not heading in the direction that you wanted to at that point either. Is that a pretty good summary of where you were when you reached out? Yeah.
Yeah, but I just also thought like, oh, there are bad days, and like, you don't know you're not supposed to feel these things, you don't know you're like feeling badly. But yeah,
it's just normal, right? It's just normal at that point.
Yeah, and if you just put in the work in the gym, like it'll eventually like fucking just grind through it and just put in the work and put in the volume, and like it'll eventually start showing the results you want. And so to me, I was just like, I just gotta just keep doing it. Just need more time,
Right. And so, we start working together, and, consistently over months and years, even, we're consistently bouncing your calories up higher and higher. What happens in that moment? Like just really at a brief level, talk about sort of like how you responded in the first like 6 months or so, to use a very cliche term, eating like an athlete.
Yeah. Well, obviously the numbers in general like freak you out at first. So like 100% I'm like, I'm going to get fat. Like I was so afraid because, they kept going up and up. And I think by the the time it's all said and done, it's like 1,000 calories more in like a year's time, which is a long time to kind of slowly work up. But, you know, when you see those numbers and you hear what other people do, you're just like, this is more than her. I want to be like her. I'm just going to end up fat. So you have that side of it. But at the same time, you're just like, I have no reason not to try this, because if I just keep doing the same thing, what the hell do I think is going to change? So it's that whole like insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different. And so I was like, well, I'm going to try and be smarter than that. So I tried it, and lo and behold, yeah, I feel better. And I very vividly remember, like, every time I would do a lift, it was like a PR almost, or, you know, like consistently lifting high percentages, like consistently being able to do it, consistently surprising myself with strength.
Sure.
So I definitely remember that. But that was in like, it was in a 6-month period. It was just like, I was better at performing, as far as like the lifting part goes. I remember that.
So I think it's no surprise.
I didn't feel, and I remember I didn't feel, there were some days where I would just literally feel like I had like no glycogen, like everything just felt like I was like a cement like block, like parts of my body. And I didn't have those feelings anymore. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, you know, I've written enough posts, and Menkenzie's talked about, like, you know, eating and feeling better and performing better. And so that's, you know, I think at this point, you know, we don't need to beat a dead horse. And so what's really interesting, I think, when you and I talk and look back upon these things is, you know, you're performing better, you're PRing in the gym, you're qualifying for the CrossFit Games. Did any of that, like, at the end of the day, like, fully remove the thoughts of like, oh, my body composition does not matter because I'm a fucking badass athlete?
Like, yes and no. Like, yes, to a degree, where it was like slowly proving to me that's like it doesn't matter, like what your performance is all that matters. So like that was getting reinforced to me as like, oh shit, maybe it doesn't matter. Like, I don't look as fit as that girl, but guess what? Like, actually I am fitter than her based on these scores. So I was learning that, but that doesn't mean that I still didn't want to look a certain way, because that's something that, you know, I, you know, look up, like, that's just something that I wanted. I've always, you know, thought that like strong women and defined women, it wasn't like a skinny look. It was just like, I want my muscles to show, and I want to, you know, I want to be that girl that people are like, oh shit, she works out, you know, like that's what I wanted. No matter how well I competed, I wanted the look as well.
Right, exactly. And so we had these like time periods, probably like after a couple of months after every game season, and then maybe once or twice throughout the year, where Mekenzie would come to me and she'd be like, listen, like, doing great, performing in the gym, but here's the deal. Like, I really want to chase aesthetics pretty hard here. And we'd be like, okay, let's do it. Like, let's slash some calories. And inevitably, I think it would last like 2 weeks, maybe 3 max.
Like, maybe in your mind, but I don't even think I made it that far. Like, maybe I didn't even let you know, but like, it was it wasn't never 6. Like, taking away food is nothing that I was like, yes, let's do it. Like,
no, it wasn't an exciting thing. Right. And so at the end of the day, you know, like, it comes back to this idea of like, you had in your mind like this look that you were constantly chasing, but at the same time your actions consistently reflected like a value set of, yes, I might want to look a certain way, but my performance is still a super important thing to me, and I'm gonna put as many of my eggs as I possibly can into that basket for as much time as I can. And sure, I might have these moments where I feel like I need to do something else, but inevitably coming back to where you were.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, it never lasted, because if you say, okay, well, you can maybe look like this, but you gotta, you know, eat less, and, you know, like to me, that was never worth it. Like, if it was like, in my mind, I thought I wanted it, but when it came down to actually executing, I learned maybe I don't really want it.
But the funny thing is that it's like, we preach patience. You and I are nutrition coaches. We preach patience to clients all the time. And so like, I'm gonna share like a picture of Mekenzie on the screen now. I hope this works. And so, Mekenzie, can you see that? So
yes.
This is right. So this is this is August. This is like right after the games, right?
I missed that. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, and so Menkenzie's sitting here like, dude, I want to look a certain way. I'm going to look a certain way, and I'm like, you do, like, you do look that way. You know what I mean? And this is just one example picture of like, how fucking amazing you looked and how strong and how athletic and like all these things that unfortunately took, years, as opposed to some of these instant transformation stories that we all, including me, put out there. It took longer, but you did get to that place. It was just, I think, different from what you had in mind, right? Like that thin skinned look that, like, as I've written about recently and we've talked about endlessly, like that's just genetics, right? And like you can get fit as fuck and you can lose body fat, but if you don't have the genetics to have, a lean, obvious six pack, you're literally just like, sledding uphill. It's not gonna happen,
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And I mean, we also, in that blog post, and I put it on my Instagram, like, I didn't realize that I was, it's because there's always more. It's like I see it all the time with my clients. I know you see it, like people have success and they get to a place where like that was their initial goal, but now that's not good enough. And now like we want more, because I know that if I was, it's just how we are. We just get greedy, because now I look back at that, and now that I'm, freaking 5 months pregnant, I look back at that and I'm like, oh my God, I was so lean. Why didn't you tell me that I was so fit looking?
Right.
And it was because like I was looking at it every day, and to me I was just like, this isn't good enough, because it's like just that's how we are. We're critics like that of ourselves. So
completely. I think there's some part that always wants better, and then there's some people out there who think that being a certain way or having a certain look is going to generate happiness for them, and then they get to that point and they find out that that actually isn't what generates happiness, right? And so for you, generating happiness was being at the CrossFit Games and going out there and showing everybody what you can do and how amazing you were, and the aesthetic changes that you had a hard time seeing in the moment, got kind of lost in that shuffle because you were too close to the situation, and so
and
happiness in your life in other ways besides this.
If you would have, because I would have been like, 2013 me, I used to have this poster board of like all the women that I wanted to be like I made like this vision board. I'm not gonna lie, that's a true story.
Sure.
And I had all these women up there, and like if you showed me a picture of me, my body, somebody else's head, like I could have very well have put myself up there and been like, this girl is a CrossFit Games athlete and she has an awesome physique, but like you don't recognize it as yourself. Or when you tell me, oh, you'd like to know, one of my clients said that they wanted to look like you as their like ideal body, so like when it becomes validated in other ways where it's not just you telling yourself it, or like being like, I have to accept this.
Sure.
It's just so different. And that's just all of this.
Yeah.
But.
So where did that come from? So, sorry, 1 second. Where did that come from for you? Like, where did this, desire to look a certain way? I think it started at a pretty early age. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, I think about that because I don't remember it setting in until like teenage years, but who knows? I mean, gosh, man, like I wish I knew why I am how I am, why I am. Like, there's a million reasons why, but I don't remember. Let me put it this way. So growing up as a swimmer, you're in the locker room a lot. So not that I'm checking girls out, but like, you're like, you see people in very minimal clothing. It's just like CrossFit. Like you get exposed to people's physiques. And I think I, was around girls that, I mean, even as like a 8, 9, 10-year-old, the girls that I looked up to were like the, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. And so, you're always aspiring, you have these role models, no matter what space you're in as an athlete. And so like, you want to be like them. So I think that probably was where that started, but not in an unhealthy way. Just one of those things where it's like, that's who I want to be like. And so you kind of have this idea of that's what I imagine myself to turn out like. And if it's not like that, you start to question, like, why am I different? Because I do swimming, you do swimming. It's just like, the way that we train, we train the same. Like, there's just so many reasons how we're different. We just don't realize it because we think, I want to be like you and I'm doing what you do.
Well, you're also a child at that point, right? Like,
well, yeah.
You have no concept of genetics or like humans being different or anything else. You in your mind stand out from everybody else. And that at that point in life is like the worst thing that could possibly happen to most kids, is to stand out in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable, you know?
Right. And I mean, I always knew it, but I always knew, even like as a kid, especially like growing up very active,
Mm-hmm.
I was fitter than a lot of my friends who didn't necessarily take sport as seriously. And like I had muscle definition and I had a different build, and like I looked like a little athletic girl
Right.
tomboy. Like that's just how I looked, and I was short and I was kind of stocky, and I was like proud of that until, like that, junior high school, where you start, being interested in the opposite sex, and like you have a crush on a boy, but he has a crush on your friend, and she's like a size 0, and you're like a size 4, and those are things where like
Yeah.
that's when for me it started becoming a thing where it was, I want it like, I want the attention from the boys, but all the boys give all of the really girly girls attention that are just like more dainty and just like more girly and just
Right.
tinier, and I'm over here like like I could lift you up, like you want to arm wrestle, like it was,
So,
I was proud of being kind of like the sporty, tomboy, but
right.
then I also wanted the same sort of treatment that they gave the girls, that in my mind it was related to my physique,
Right.
whenever it was probably related to just my demeanor, which whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
like a total alpha.
I
I
wanted
got
both,
it.
like,
Sure.
yeah, like you want both. So that led me to start questioning the whole,
Right.
like that's where it kind of went down into like the disordered eating path, and me starting to do some stuff to change my body that was not helping.
So, not to bring you down an ugly history, but talk about sort of like, how long that path took and kind of where you ended up and all that, the ugliness
Right.
that unfortunately ensued.
Yeah, well, it started, like I said, I was a freshman in high school. I remember I was like 130 pounds, and I was, all season, I played at least 2 sports at one time, like very athletic. I was like voted most athletic in my class as a senior. Like it was just like my identity. And I was really proud of that. But it became, like I said, related to, I want attention from boys. And so all my like girly petite friends were getting that attention. And so one summer my mom started Weight Watchers, and I was like, I will just start. I don't know why. Like, I don't think it was because I wanted to lose weight, but I was just interested. She had like these books and the system. Like, it was just one of those things where I was like I spent a lot of time with my mom. So it just kind of was
Right.
something that I started to pick up. And I ended up losing like, well, it started out being counting points, but then you earn points by doing exercise, and
Right.
you have 0-point foods. And so I was doing all this math where I was eating a lot of 0-point foods and then working out and then doing an extra run to earn more points. And I wanted to see like how low of a freaking negative number I could get. And
Yeah.
it started to get like, that's how that kind of went south. And then it turned into, like, then I would want to eat food, and I would have kind of like these binge episodes. And
Mm-hmm.
then it turned into a binging and purging scenario for a while.
Yep.
It was never just not eating. It was just eating very little and over exercising, and then binging and purging, or just sometimes I just decided to just throw up what I ate on occasion because I felt like it was too much, and it was probably totally appropriate. So yeah, that was my summer of my freshman year of high school, and I actually found these pictures. They're right next to me while I was waiting for you to call. Like, this is what I looked like when I started. This was March of
Yeah.
2003. Oh, sorry, yeah, 2002, and this was October 2002.
Wow. Yeah. Just
Like,
tiny.
yeah, I have like bones for shoulders, like that's skeleton like.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Completely.
so I was like 30 pounds, and I went to a swim meet, and I remember it was right that fall, and I knew my mom was worried because she was really worried that I was like not gonna do well. And I ended up, yeah, feeling like basically I had nothing to give. Like I said, that feeling of just like cinder block arms and legs, um, it was insane. And I swim practiced every day, but I think it was just the intensity, and I'm not sure I'd eaten very much that day, and I could not compete for shit. And
Sure.
I was basically slapped in the face of just like, wow, everything you worked towards for like 10 years is like gone. You
Yeah.
know, like you pride yourself so much on being this athlete, and then now you can't even perform, and it's like, what are you even doing? It really, really scared me enough to be like, yeah, there's a problem. And if I can't have my identity and my pride and like all this hard work that I've put in, then I'm just like, I don't like, that's just what I staked my whole, like, self-worth in almost. So yeah, I was very much kind of like scared out of this place that I was in, and I ended up seeing a therapist, and I had to gain a certain amount of weight. They
Okay.
put me on like they put me on very close watch of like almost reverse dieting, but
Sure.
in a time where that was not even a thing. So I'm not even sure if it was approached appropriately, because
Right.
I ended up being so encouraged to eat that I ended up gaining weight back, and I looked more unhealthy. And even though I gained the weight back, I continued to exercise the purging, like the binge and purge, for like a long time. Like
Yeah.
up until before probably, that was like, it was a 10-year span of disordered eating where I didn't look anorexic. I didn't look like I was unhealthy, but I was definitely having a poor relationship with food, where if I didn't like how I felt after I ate something, or I felt like I had no control, where people tell me I start eating and then I can't stop, like I would just let that happen because I'm like, I'll just go throw it up when I'm done.
Right.
So I had these really horrible patterns of not being able to control my relationship with food. Therefore, I was basically like, suffering bulimia for like 8 years or something.
Right.
And it was very closeted. Like there was a point where like my family kind of knew back when, like I said, in that time where it was very obvious that I was struggling with weight. My family, they knew, they were on to me. But then once I had like gained the weight back and worked myself out of it, it was a very closeted behavior.
Sure.
So yeah, that went on for a long time. And I liked, the whole time I was in school, the whole time I was becoming a dietitian, like, oh, I'm so like healthy and know about nutrition and I work out all the time. But like secretly I had this like horrible, filthy secret, and like the
Right.
fact that this is something that I'm trying to work as a professional in, and I don't even have a handle on it myself. Like that's fucked up, right? So I was just like really embarrassed of that. And yeah, it took me to finding CrossFit and deciding that I respected my body enough to like this is awesome. I know I'm learning that if I put this sort of work in, like I'm getting my body to change. I'm seeing the changes that I want, and I'm
Right.
performing and doing this shit that is like so cool, and I feel like a badass. And once I learned to respect the work that my body was doing, I was able to respect that it needs fuel.
Yeah.
And then once I got with you on balancing that all, it's like I never thought I would be able to be that person to just like, I'm gonna eat a donut and not feel bad. Like I literally I don't ever feel bad. I don't feel like I have to justify my choices. I don't feel like I have to play some sort of like balancing game. Like today, this is where I'm at today, but like
Yeah.
I would say I've gotten to that point just through working with you over, the past 4 years, but it took a while to get there.
Completely.
But
Oh, you definitely weren't that way
yeah,
when you
like,
started. That's for sure.
yeah, no. And it's an extremely it's relationship with food. So yeah, I came from the very dark side of that, where I want people to know that, because I can identify and relate to that. And I know that you can get to the other side of that, but it takes a long time dedicating to really trusting food,
Right.
honestly.
Yeah, completely. It's
So
definitely
yeah,
a
so
process for sure, and everyone's journey is a little bit different. And so, for you, you had this original waking up moment from, basically performance again, right? Like
yeah,
this balance in your life between performance and nutrition or aesthetics, and that kind of woke you up. And I can't help but assume that that had an impact later in your life when you're like those, you had this sort of scarring moment that shook you out of a disordered eat, well, started the path out of disordered eating. and it was because you felt
Right.
like you had this shit feeling. And then, you and I were, 2 years in, and, we cut your carbs by 150 grams or something like that to cut, and you have a bad performance. And I have to imagine that somewhere subconsciously in the back of your brain, you're thinking back to that experience in the pool and thinking, I never want to feel that way again. Like, what am I doing?
I mean, it really just, I mean, it's taught me, like, I obviously have known, like, which is, it's tough for me now because I'm sitting here saying, like, I put so much of like my self-worth in my identity as an athlete. That's only because I put so much into that endeavor that becomes so important to me. Which is terrifying now that I'm like not an athlete. I'm like, well, then what the fuck am I? No, I'm fine. Don't
Right.
worry about me. I'm not going down that dark place. But it is something that's definitely solidified that that's a huge value to me, that I, can say I care about this, or say, maybe have moments of like weakness and think that I care about something more. But like at the end of the day, like that's what brings me back to reality, is like,
Sure.
and that's what I've learned a value is something that you're just so rooted in that you can maybe be pulled a different way, but you're always going to come back to like that true north of,
Right.
what really matters to you. And so through
Right. Well,
my experience as a teenager, through, like I said, finding CrossFit in general and realizing like, I want to like be good at this and I want to perform, like it basically set me on the path to like developing a better relationship with food and respecting my body. And then like anything that we've ever done that's never worked, because it turns out doesn't matter, I don't care about that as much. Like it really does just prove to me how much performance is like a way bigger value than really
right.
anything else.
In that point in your life, right? And so like I kind of see like this journey of, you had this value system that placed, because you wanted to have, the attention of boys, and so your value system was placed upon aesthetics.
Right.
And then, you transitioned to this point in your life where your value system, because of how much time you were putting into it and how much hard work and sacrifices that both you and your husband and your family were making, you'd placed your value systems around, being that athlete and being, on that stage and qualifying for the games, etc. And now it's really cool, actually through that process, because I see your value system changing in a sense. And again, one, from an athlete point of view, you said in the blog post that you and I wrote together, I began to transform my perspective from I need to look like the standard, versus to how I look is a standard. I'm a different kind of mold that still fits the mold. And so, that was a huge transformation for you mentally. And now I see this third transition to I have intrinsic value. It's not defined by how I look. It's not even defined by, what I can do on a competition floor. It's defined by who I am, Mekenzie Riley, as a person, and what I'm going to bring to being a mom, to being, a wife, to being, whatever that you want to do next in your life, which we'll talk about soon. And so it's like these transformations in your life that you go through in finding value in different ways. And at the end of the day, getting to this core value of just who you are, having value in and of itself.
Yeah. You're like 100% right. That's definitely like, and you don't notice it.
No.
You have to be able to want to be like a little introspective and like take a step back and like look at these things, because like that shit is meaningful, but we're in here like grinding, trying to like make the CrossFit Games every day. Like, that's been the focus, but like being able to take a step back and look at, people talk about the journey, but like really and truly it should transform you in like so many different ways. Not just physically and like, oh, my place on the leaderboard, but like, like there should be things that you're learning and taking away that should be bigger than like application to fitness. And it's crazy. So yeah, I think that the way you just described is definitely all these kind of like realizations I've had. And it does come back to just really knowing, like at the end of the day, like what you truly care, like what really matters to you. And
Sure.
there will be struggles. I think that like you'll definitely have times where you want to be pulled in a lot of different directions. And I'm just really, I'm glad that I feel so strongly about performance, because I know there are women that, still perform really, really well. And still like, you would never know that they have these struggles, just with like their self and body image and acceptance. And, it's like, things are never as how they appear, so
That's
I'm
a
really
good
glad
question
that
for you.
I can at least,
No, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I'm really glad that I can at least come back to knowing, like at the end of the day, if I'm performing well, like fuck it, I don't care about, like, whatever, like,
Right.
that's what matters to me. And so some girls still struggle to come back to that. So
I mean, so you're part of that sort of inner circle. So if you had to guess, just from your communications and, what percentage of these elite female athletes that people look up, these Instagram famous people, these CrossFit famous people that still struggle with body image in their minds, what percentage, if you had to guess?
the thing, I mean, at this current point, because if you talk to I think if you had every girl talk about it, every single one of them at some point would tell you that they had some sort of like issue with their body. Whether they're there now, I don't know. But I would say almost 100% would tell you at some point they definitely have been there. And I would say a majority, at least 50%, if not more, 60, 70 maybe, still have these thoughts at some point.
Sure.
So I mean, I don't know. Maybe. What do you think? Do you think
I
I'm
think
accurate? What do you?
I mean, I think it's crazy high. I think every athlete that I work with, has these thoughts in some level or another. And sure, maybe that's a bias view because they're coming to work with a nutrition coach, right? But I've got people that have, that have podiumed on the CrossFit Games at literally every different level, teenage, masters, etc. And they still struggle with these things, and it's really interesting to see that.
There's at least a day or like an outfit you put on and think, I look fat. Like no one doesn't like I guarantee every, at least woman, I don't know about dudes, there's lots of different things going on with guys, but a girl, I guarantee at some point in her like situation now will look in the mirror someday and just be like, I feel fat today, or I feel fluffy today. I don't care like where you're at in the field. Could be on top of the podium.
I'm thinking more from the point of view of willing to make sacrifices to their performance to achieve a certain aesthetics.
Right.
Like I can tell you, I can't think of an athlete I work with that doesn't have those types of thought processes at some point throughout their season, based upon something. Maybe that moment that you're describing, maybe that moment of like, I put on this outfit and it didn't feel a little bit, or I was reviewing a video of my handstand walks and I didn't feel like this looked, and so next thing you know, I'm getting blown up.
Yeah.
Or I can tell you my favorite time of the year, which is the week before either former regionals, rest in peace, or the CrossFit Games, when people realize that they're going to be on camera, and then every single client that's going to be in that situation decides that they're fluffy. And it's like, you're the exact same where you were a week ago. You still look amazing, but you're having these neurological responses to the fact that 1,000, or tens of thousands of people are going to see you.
It's so true. It's so true. You catch one, like you said, a video or a picture of yourself and you're like, ooh, I didn't know I looked like that. But
it's never in a fully standing upright position with like your hands on your side. It's always bent over, grabbing a med ball with a belt on, and Lululemon's pants pulled up to your navel as well. So you got the belt going one direction, pants going the other, and you're freaking out about what you see in the middle.
There's some bad angles. And those are the ones you remember. Those are the ones you remember,
Yeah.
Or the pictures you really like are the ones where like you're throwing a wall ball and like your freaking whole core stretched out and like you can like see your abs and you're like, God, I look good in those ones though. I should just walk around with my arms over my head all day.
All day long.
Yeah.
So let's transition. So you're moving out of the CrossFit Games athlete component of your life, most likely.
For now, we'll see. I don't really know what's happening, but yes.
For sure. You have a big transition from there going on, regardless of the fact that you're growing a child. What else is kind of on your mind as it relates to that process? Like, how has the transition been? Is it hard to kind of go from training 4 or 5 hours a day to you're thinking about this more from a recreational or health point of view? Like, how is that transition from elite athlete to next phase of life gone?
Yeah, that's tough because first of all, in my mind, I've learned in the past, if I don't use it, I lose it. So thinking of the sooner I cut out something, that's a longer time that I'm going to have to not be able to do it, which means getting back into it, I'm going to suck at it. And that's going to be hard. So I've been like really trying to hold on to things as long as I can because of the fear of the duration of time I won't be able to do it. So, that part was hard. And then in my mind, preserving my abilities and capacity, like I said, so trying to continue to train more volume than an average affiliate class, continuing to train, you know, not to the volume of a competitor, but more than the average, because that's going to keep me in some sort of, you know, above average, you know, shape, to where like, I don't
Sure.
know. It's, and I actually was just told this, I'm working with Brianna Battles, who's pregnant and postpartum athlete, is her program that she does for, you know, pregnant ladies to help you safely navigate pregnancy and then postpartum, coming back into things. So I've been lucky to have her guidance, where I honestly, like, she told me the other day, she's like, you're not holding on to anything. She's like, the smartest athletes, like, be smart now, because this isn't keeping you competitive. This isn't, like, what you're doing now is not keeping you super, like, highly fit. Like, right now you just need to be healthy and then be able to come back hard. And if you fuck yourself up now, you're not going to be able to come back hard. Like, that's the important time. So it's like, do now so that you can do later.
Right.
And instead of like holding on to things now to kind of like fuck yourself up later almost, you know? So,
Sure.
yeah, so it's like, it almost seems backwards. So kind of letting go of that, is being told, like, it doesn't really matter what you do now. It's like, it doesn't matter. This time doesn't matter. I'm just like, okay, well, that's one way to help me really not be stupid then. But it is tough. I will say there was a time where I thought, like I said, I wanted to keep doing more volume and wanted to keep logging the hours, mostly because I didn't know what else to do, but also because it was more mental for me. But now that I'm realizing that's silly, and I can be doing something more productive with that time, which is going to serve me and my family better. I've been kind of getting further away from like putting in all the training, especially now that I have to modify things, because when you have a baby pushing through your belly, I don't know if people know, but like your abs separate and you become very nervous about stretching out and ruining anything in your midsection. So you become a little bit more limited, you start modifying workouts more. And at that point, you're just like, get it in, get it done. Like, I don't need to keep grinding through like 4 or 5 pieces of like very limited options. So yeah, I've been trying to focus my energy and my thoughts into developing something beyond fitness. Because like you said, I've learned a lot of things in my journey and life and through this fitness journey that aren't just applicable to, I can be a great coach. And I want to do, I plan to do some coaching and, you know, pay it forward, my knowledge and experience, but there's a lot of stuff that comes from this journey that's more than just fitness related. So I'm really looking forward to these, like, you know, the platform that I have and trying to grow it beyond fitness and kind of like convey bigger, you know, lessons and bigger, I don't know, just there's a lot more that can come out of this than just how to be a good athlete. And so I'm really trying to, you know, put that information out into the world and let that, you know, because people say CrossFit's a metaphor for life. And like, I really believe it. So trying to kind of like connect those dots.
So you're doing some things in that that direction. So talk about the blog you're writing. What's that all about? Where can people find that?
Yeah, well, thanks. So I used to have a blog back before I started training full time, and then I didn't have the time or the energy to want to keep it, so I abandoned it. And so I brought it back to life, and I'm gonna obviously be able to. Before it was like to talk about nutrition and fitness, and now it's like, let's just talk about life and nutrition and fitness, and who even cares? Like, maybe I just want to talk about like something random that happened. I don't know. Maybe we'll just talk about stupid shit. So, it's just more for fun. And it's called, originally I called it Mekenzie Riley Keeps It Real, because I just like say things, whatever, no filter, right? So it's a WordPress site. So you can go look that one up. It's in my Instagram. I think it's in my Instagram bio.
So Mekenzie Riley Keeps It Real is the name of the blog. Awesome.
Yeah. yeah, so I'm starting there because I realize I like writing, and I also might do a bigger work, but we're kind of sitting on that for right now. So just look for maybe some writing projects to come out.
Yeah.
Like I said, coaching at my local affiliates, and I'm hoping to still stay plugged into like the competitive space through Misfit, who's always been like my major supporter and sponsor as a competitive athlete. So, um, you know, whether it's coaching with them or doing something underneath their brand, they're totally supporting me in whatever I choose to do. So I will hopefully stay in the competitive space with that,
Right.
and then continuing to take on clients nutrition wise.
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
always available. I'm always taking people, especially now that I have more time.
Yeah.
Um,
So as you guys can tell, Mekenzie doesn't like to have any downtime. She doesn't like to sit around and
no,
relax very much. She likes to be constantly um, doing things and learning new things and working and interacting with other people. And so, if you have some aspect of your life that you think you could, improve related to performance, whether it's nutrition or, workouts or anything like that, Mekenzie is an absolute resource for these things because she's been doing it for, over half a decade now. And so, like she said, she has unique experiences that you really can't find too many other places, and an education coming from a nutritional background that a lot of other people lack. So it is a unique blend that doesn't exist in too many other places. So
yeah, I'm a unicorn. I always told you.
this is true. You and many other people, but you probably more than anybody else told me how much of a unicorn you are. So
I mean, I like to believe so, but I mean, really though, like, I don't know if people believe me when I'm like, I understand how you're feeling, like the anxiety and the stress around food and the, you know, relationship with food. I've truly been there. So especially those people that have those sorts of battles and those struggles, like I really want to help them. And you know, like it's everybody's on their own journey, but hopefully talking to somebody who, like, you know, has been through it, and you can develop, you know, maybe a better sense of trust in the process. You know, talking to somebody who's been through it, because I love when people say something to me and I'm like, dude, I used to be the queen of that. Like, trust me, I know. You know, but it just proves that there is like there is another side, because I'm not perfect, but I'm definitely in a lot better place than I ever used to be. So, especially if you have anything like that, like, totally reach out to me. I would love to, you know, like you said, be a resource, or, you know, somebody of counsel to help you get to the other side.
yeah, completely. So yeah, so like Mackenzie said, she has a unique perspective, and going through all of these things, and is literally one of the strongest people we know. Um, we haven't even touched on some of the other things from your life that have strengthened you and made you really who you are. We haven't even like broached those topics, and so I hope someday that you can do this again and talk about other things that have impacted who you are, and the way you do things, and the way that you've approached life. This has been great. Um, Maybe think with a closing thought, anything that you want to leave people with, any closing quote or idea that's really drives down to the core of who you are.
Oh, damn
Put you
it.
on the
No,
spot in a
like,
big
it's
way.
so much pressure. Shit.
I know.
That's it.
I've been doing this to your entire CrossFit career, putting pressure on you. So
So much pressure. You know, this is too much pressure. I don't really have a closing thought. I guess after over everything that we've talked about, like, I don't know. Because it really is, it's different for everybody. And I'm not like trying to tell people, like, listen, this is how you're gonna, like, this is how my journey went, so this is how your journey is gonna go, and I came out of this way. But really, it takes trusting. It takes like trusting the process, and really like knowing what you want, or like establishing your values. Almost, like I said, that's what's like pulled me out of things so many times. And it took me a long time to understand what the concept of a value was, and that, like, obviously performance is a major one for me. But like finding that true north of like things that at the end of the day, like, you're truly rooted in, like, that's what's going to get you through. So when you're trying to take on a new journey, or like, you know, tackle an obstacle, or like whatever you're going through, like, knowing at your very core like what matters and what's always going to ground you. Because I think a lot of people just don't really know who they are, how they feel.
Hmm.
And that's for like a lifelong like journey. But the more that you really, really know, like, what matters to you, the more I think successful you'll be in like any endeavor. Um,
Definitely.
that's kind of like a deep thought, but um, just always be trying to find your truest self, and I think that will lead you through whatever experience or
Awesome.
journey, like you said, endeavor. Just want to work out with a nutrition coach, or you want to like make it to the CrossFit Games, or like whatever your goals are. You
Sure.
kind of gotta like really have a grasp on like, at the core of yourself, who you are and what matters most. So
Definitely.
I don't know.
Find who you are. Yeah, no, that's great. Kenzie, thank you so much for all your time today. You've been amazing. And hopefully we can do this again sometime soon and talk about how going through the
Please.
postpartum world of being a mom is going. Sound good?
Yes, absolutely. I will have plenty to share, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
All
Bye.
right.